And it was a crazy idea to begin with because no one understood what we were trying to do. But from the first show itself, it was something which would bring in cash flow. It almost broke even. So it felt like we'd hit upon a really interesting business idea which we could do on our own. All, whatever savings or whatever money, beg, borrow, steal, and you do it. And I never thought of anything. It was always trying to run a business which would at least make some money from day one so that you have, you can sustain it to a certain level. So that's how we did it.
This week's Paisa Vaisa episode is powered by Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund, our education partner for an exciting new series, Wealth Creation Simplified. In this special series, we are diving deep into how young investors can build long-term wealth through smart investing, milestone-based financial planning, and mutual funds. All broken down in a way that's simple, actionable, and relevant. We've got an incredible lineup of guests, including Nimesh Chandan, CIO of Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund, Kushal Lodha, Vivek Kaul, and Aparajita Sharma, who will be sharing their expert insights on navigating economic uncertainty, the power of compounding, behavioral investing, and aligning investments with your biggest life goal. Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, and on today's episode, super duper episode, it's one more in our series of how businesses work. I'm going to talk about cosplay, comics, pop culture. My guest Jatin Varma, founder Comic Con India. Jatin, welcome. Welcome to Paisa Vaisa. It is great to have you here. Thanks so much for doing this for our audience.
Thank you so much for having me over.
What is the deal? I'm so fascinated by your journey because I don't get people from that industry on my show. Let's just start with, where did you get this idea? Who are you? What's been like your experience so far doing this here?
I'm Jatin. I'm born and brought up in Delhi. I've been running Comic Con India for the past 14 years. The idea came as a fun thought back in 2010. I used to publish comic books. I was obviously a comic book fan, and I just wanted to figure out how I could reach more people to sell my comic books. And the idea of no one ever doing a Comic Con in India was really enticing, and to be the first one to do something like that. And that's it. It just started off from there. Just to give background, obviously I was doing something else professionally back then. I was publishing and creating content, producing television shows. So it allowed me the financial ability to do something like this. And it was a crazy idea to begin with because no one understood what we were trying to do. But from the first show itself, it was something which would bring in cash flow. It almost broke even. So it felt like we'd hit upon a really interesting business idea which we could do on our own.
How difficult was it to introduce an international concept like Comic Con in the Indian market? And what were the initial challenges you faced back then? We are talking about 2011?
Yeah.
What was it like then?
My only experience of doing an event was the spoof film awards I used to do, Golden Kela Awards. And that used to be done in a conference room, with friends and family and just having fun. This was a live event with thousands of people showing up, and so it was a massive learning curve. The biggest challenges were everything you can imagine from day one. Some things helped because I was already running a business, so there was a team who had to kind of adapt and figure out what we are doing. Explaining to people what this concept is. And I can be very honest, even 14 years later, there are people who come up to me and be like, I don't understand what Comic Con is.
Okay.
So my easiest answer to them is that it's an exhibition, which has entertainment built into it. So that's how I explain it.
So 2011 Delhi? 2011?
Yes. 2011 Delhi, in Delhi Heart. If anyone's ever been to Delhi, it's this open-air crafts bazaar. Back in the day when Delhi was not polluted, in the winters it was an amazing place to visit for time pass and as a tourist. So we picked it because we thought on any given weekend there are thousands of people coming, and we might attract people to come at the back of that area and check out Comic Con.
And what was it like? What did you expect versus what happened?
I expected friends, family to show up. So maybe a few hundred people. It was thousands of people. Obviously, I do say more than 50% of the audience was probably there for the Lee Heart.
Sure.
But it was packed. I did not expect it. People were sitting and watching our panels, seeing what we do on stage, a tiny stage. They were checking out all the booths. They were buying stuff. So it was phenomenal.
Any, fun anecdotes from that very first thing behind the scenes, or any wild stuff that you guys encountered at that?
First of all, the when you booked us, then they realized what we are doing. They said, no, we can't let you do this because, commercial things cannot take place here in this area. It can only be arts and culture. We said, then we had to convince them. The whole logistics of managing a government venue. Then it rained on the second day in February in Delhi, which is not really a regular thing. But the show went on.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I was exhausted, tired, but it was totally worth it. I cosplayed. Everyone in my team had to cosplay. So we had to roam around in costumes.
So what were you dressed
I was dressed up as Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek, without the bald head. It was... I have flashes of memory of that first 2 days because by the end of it, we were so tired and exhausted. We had never done this before. I didn't even know how do you set up an exhibition, who's the right vendor, what Octonom stall or whatever it might be. So, but it was memorable. I look at those pictures and I can't remember any of them.
2011, no VC, no private equity,
Nothing.
nothing.
All whatever savings or whatever money, beg, borrow, steal, and you do it. And I never thought of anything. It was always trying to run a business which would at least make some money from day one, so that you have, you can sustain it to a certain level. So that's how we did it.
And Comic-Con today, what's it like?
It's if I were to travel back, if the Jatin from 2011 were to come now, he would find it a very alien.
We're talking about Doctor Strange kind of a thing?
Yeah, because it's a completely professionally run organization with a lot of a large team, everything running like clockwork, knowing exactly what we need, how to manage crowds, all of that. And we're doing a lot more than what we did initially. So Comic-Con is very different. I think the only difference I would say, and this is not really a negative thing, but if I had to say, it was slightly more personal when you start out something, and as you grow in size and scale, it becomes slightly impersonal. So that's the, sort of a major difference that I feel.
So walk us through what it takes to organize a Comic-Con event, right? From venue selection to exhibitors, how does the entire thing come together? Let's say that someone out there is watching this right now. He wants to understand like the brass tacks, the nuts and bolts of how you put this event together.
Comic-Con for us is about 8 to 9 months of planning. Obviously booking the right venue. It's an exhibition which has an entertainment element to it. So what we ideally want anywhere in any city is a convention center. Unfortunately, either they don't exist in some places, or if they do, they're government run, so they're not really maintained, or if they're private, like this beautiful venue in Mumbai where we do a show.
Nesco in Goregaon?
No, we do it at Geo World
Geo
Trade
Garden.
Center. Geo World Trade Center. It's one of the best venues.
At NMAC, you're saying?
At BKC.
It's called Nita Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center. Sorry, we in Bombay just call it NMAC.
NMAC.
Okay, so you do it there, is it? Okay.
Yeah, we do it there. We've been doing it there for the past, I think 2 years. It'll be the 3rd edition. After the pandemic, it opened up.
You used to be at Goregaon also?
We used to be in Nesco.
Tell me the difference between the two.
Worlds apart.
Okay.
The Geo Center is like a 7-star hotel. And
so it's tuned to what you're doing.
I mean it is an expensive venue, but totally worth the investment. And while I do enjoy the time we had in Nesco, Nesco is broken up in different hangars. Everything is under one roof.
Let's go back.
I mean, the idea is to figure out which city we're in. Obviously, we know which cities we're going to go to. We figure out the right venue, book it way in advance, lay out the entire map of how we want to place our exhibitors, our sponsors, our content, our main stage, all of that. And then about 90 days before the event is when we start talking about it, start selling tickets, start promoting it. And as we get closer to the show, all things come together. Our sales team will sell out the show floor. Our sponsorship team will sell out sponsorship slots. Our content programming team will book performers, guests, and everyone at the show. But in India, live events are one of the riskiest business because anything can happen at any point in time. So while you plan everything, It comes down to the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
For an exhibition, which is not really a seated event, we have a floating audience. We sell tickets right till the day of the show.
Okay.
So we sell a bulk of our tickets are sold in the last 3 weeks.
As I think most live events usually have that kind of format.
Yeah, I mean, with a concert, depending on the performer, you can sell out early. But with something which has been happening for a while, and
I'm not talking about Coldplay kind of a thing, but I'm saying in general.
In general. And, then the entire team travels to the city. We start working with our vendors and we start setting up the show. Everything is put together right down to the last detail. And on the weekend, first day, Saturday, we're out there at 10 a.m. ready to start our box office. Fans line up. There's a whole countdown.
Wow.
And that's it. It starts.
So I want to understand one thing. This is the same Comic-Con in the US. You've got...
No, so there are different entities and individuals who run Comic-Cons around the world.
Okay, cool.
So within US, there are at least 100 different entities and individuals that run Comic-Cons in different cities. The oldest one is San Diego.
What's it like there?
So in terms of the format and what happens at the show, it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
What is different is scale. And obviously, other than maybe a New York Comic-Con or San Diego, the other shows are usually smaller. So our show is relatively large as compared to them. The other is for a North American Comic-Con, easier access to talent and content. So which is not easy for India. So that's the only difference.
Where all in India have you done this?
So we started in Delhi, then Bombay, Mumbai, and then Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. This year we are doing 8 editions
in one calendar year.
In one season, which is the season starts October going all the way till April.
Oh, so before monsoon.
Yeah. So there's only, a few places.
For everything there is just that gap. If it's open air live, to yahi hai.
That's life in India. That's also wedding season, So so Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and we've added Calcutta, Pune, and Ahmedabad. And we hope
Ahmedabad should be interesting.
Ahmedabad we'd done once before, right before the pandemic. It was a good show. We're going back again. We have a better venue. Pune we did test it out in 2016 and 17. It was a small show. Now we're going back in full force. Kolkata was the first time. It happened 2 weeks back. It was phenomenal.
You would get the Northeast crowd also from there? Not much.
No.
But Cal itself has got a fairly large...
Oh, yeah. It was... And, when I started Comic-Con and all throughout the past 14 years, we were pinged so much by fans in Calcutta. Why don't you do it there?
Wow.
I made a whole video about the emails and messages and everything over the past 10 years that I've gotten. And, the funniest part was that every time we try and do it, something would go wrong. Either there were no venues, or when there was a venue, it was not available. So finally we went there and it was spectacular. It was everything I thought it would be.
So I want to understand one thing here, Jatin. So there is obviously the entire pop culture from the US, which obviously has a very big base out here. Okay, but India itself has got a reasonably large, like I'm an 80s kid, whether it's Indrajal, whether it's Chacha Chaudhary, and I'm assuming so that is still the English stroke Hindi crowd, but I'm pretty sure that regionally also there's a lot of things happening. Has that been your experience?
So comics in India exist, and thankfully for those people in the 80s and 90s who made them, the late Pran, Uncle Pai, the family at Raj Comics, there is a culture for knowing or at least understanding what comic books are. Unfortunately, it's not really an industry, it's more of a community. There are a few people like Amar Chitra Katha, like Diamond Comics and Raj Comics that exist. Like in Calcutta, we saw some local publishers. And they obviously have a history of local characters like Bartol and Nonte, Fonte, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And some others. But in Chennai, they had some as well. But it's not as big or prevalent as it probably was.
I kind of find that really weird for a country. Forget the 140 crores. That number in any case meaningless.
I think it's 160. So
okay. But the fact that we come from such a rich mythological base, it's just kind of, I don't know, I just feel that...
Look, we think all of that, and I realized, and that's a myth that people think that, there is so much history, mythology, and most of the comics are around that.
Yeah.
And books also. You would imagine people would be really into it. They're not. They don't read books in general. Forget comic books.
फिर तो
Bestsellers in India are a few thousand copies. Maybe in the back in the day it was a lot more, but now it's less. While I say all of that, there is a very thriving, strong community of artists and creators. There are people who publish comics. There are people who self-publish.
Sure.
There are individual artists who do web comics now, and they're extremely popular. But obviously, because of the depth and size of, say, Western stuff, even Japanese stuff, that
manga or anime,
which is ruling the roost right now.
Yeah.
They dominate any show anywhere in the world, and we try our best to make sure that when we do any Comic-Con, we also have the Indian content, relevant content present at the show. Yeah. So that's what we do.
Okay, cosplay. Huge part of Comic-Con India. I mean, you said it, you came in as Jean-Luc Picard. Of all this, why didn't you choose a superhero? You went with Star Trek.
I'm a Trekkie, best.
Okay.
So I like Star Wars also, but if I had to pick between Star Trek, Star Wars, I'd pick Star Trek. Also, it was a very comfortable costume to roam around, and it was easily available. But yeah, I mean, cosplay. The first Comic-Con we did, there were 13 cosplayers. 6 of them I knew personally.
Oh, okay.
So and we encouraged everyone to, because the whole idea of cosplay never existed here. A lot of people said, why are you dressed in fancy dress? But that quickly went away. By the time we did the show in Bangalore in 2012, there were people coming in cosplaying. One of the funniest questions I get every year, every show from everyone is, all these people in costume, are you paying them to do this? I'm like, no, they're paying me to be here in that costume. So in the initial years, we had to encourage people. So we were all cosplaying. So that's one of our proudest achievements. We introduced this thing in India, and we support and promote it as much as possible. And if you come cosplaying as any character, and not an elaborate costume, even like a Shikari Shambhu, you're a celebrity at Comic-Con.
Is it?
People are going to stop you, they'll take pictures, they'll be so happy to see you. You'll find people who love that character and they'll become your friends. So some of my closest friends are people I met at Comic-Con.
Wow.
So, and cosplay is that spark that starts off those conversations.
Didn't figure you to be a Trekkie, but yeah. Live long and prosper.
But there was a time when Star Wars was really in my heart, but then the last trilogy just killed it. So, so much so that it's been very hard to go back to it.
Trekkies don't get their due, huh? I don't think Trekkies get...
I'm happy now, especially with Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's a new series. It's very old school. It's episodic. And that's I'm happy that's happening till it gets cancelled. So
maybe we should do another episode on the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, before we go into the Star Trek thing, so cosplay again. I just want to go a little bit more deep into it. What's that journey been like? You just spoke about how when you started this in 2011, there were only 13, of which 6 were people that you actually knew.
Yeah.
Walk us through how this has become a thing. Like, I know that when you enter Comic-Con, like I have friends, like people of my age, who are just so much into it.
Yeah.
What's the deal? I mean, what sparks this?
I think when we started back, cosplay had to be there because a Comic-Con is incomplete without people in costume. And that was a necessity back then. And I never thought that it would take off in this manner where despite a Comic-Con happens once a year, but there are people who will form clubs, they'll form communities, groups where they'll build costumes, help each other, look forward to a Comic-Con to unveil their costume for the year, and that started happening organically. What did help is when we started our Comic-Con, that was around the time when Facebook was becoming big. That helped us get more people to our shows and also kind of helped communities form. And when we realized that there are people who are really interested in it, we decided that every Comic-Con we would try and encourage them. So we would do contests. We would keep taking that up a notch till about 5-6 years back, before the pandemic, we realized that there are people who want to do it professionally, because there are professional cosplayers around the world as well.
Professional cosplayers.
Yeah, that means, so this is a level of costume where you're looking at the character come to life.
Wow.
The detailing.
Help me with some examples out here if you can.
So, I mean, the biggest ones in the past few years have been around gaming.
Okay.
So a lot of costumes from Dota 2. There's been a lot of costumes from Valorant. These are cosplays based out of Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay. A lot of people in Bombay who've been building these costumes which make it look like they've just come to life. The characters come to life. And internationally, this is big. There are people who do this day in, day out. This
I
is
kind
their
of
job.
thought that you'd go with the superhero thing, but gaming is like out of the thing.
Gaming, anime. So one of the biggest cosplay pools comes from anime and manga.
Wow.
Then gaming, then it goes to superheroes maybe. Superhero costumes are a little difficult to also replicate at times. But the interest lies in gaming and anime and manga these days. So those communities formed organically. What we did was, at every Comic-Con we would try and highlight it. The biggest draw at a Comic-Con on our main stage every day is the parade that we do and the contest. And we give out a lot of gifts. We give out a lot of money. This year we're going to end the season in Mumbai. And by the time Mumbai happens, we would have spent over 1 crore in just cosplay gifting.
ये खर्चा है.
ये हम खर्चते हैं just to give out prizes and money.
I can't wait to get into the revenues part. We'll come to that later.
But because the ROI on it is, it's not an ROI based investment. It's an investment because it is a very crucial part of Comic-Con.
Yeah, and people are spending this themselves. Like, just to reiterate that, you're not.
No, I'm not. They buy a ticket and come in because So and we want, our theme is everyone can cosplay. So we created 2 categories. There is a cosplay contest. There is a championship, which is done in each city. Then there is a national finals, and then you become the cosplay champion of India. And then you represent India maybe at an international event. And there are people who started off as regular cosplayers. They got really into it, became professionals. They built their own studios where now they do costume design for films and ads. I mean, it's been amazing.
As someone who read comics when he was a kid and was like really into it, and then was in the MCU phase 1, by the way, movies, and like Jatin said, Trekkie, Star Wars, the entire thing, it's just very fascinating for me to figure that something like this, of this scale, happens in India, and people with that kind of, it takes passion. Nobody would want to leave their day job and say, ki bhai 2 din ke liye I'll dress up like this. Like, first of all, the parents wouldn't let them out, but and there are older people who do this. It's not that just young kids do it, right? It's across the age.
So most of our audience is above the age of 18. The median age is 21. We get teenagers a lot these days. I'm saying 16-year-olds or older, and then mostly it's college kids or people who just are starting their careers or whatever. So that's our core audience.
If you think comics are for kids,
they're absolutely not.
You have not been to a Comic-Con.
That's actually one of the biggest problems and myths that we fight against, even in the industry or the community for comic books in India. They're not for kids. There are comics for kids, but comic books in general are read by young adults or older or adults. They're not meant for kids.
And when you say that, I kind of go down the entire Frank Miller Sin City kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Like that stuff is.
And the phone, as a kid, when I wanted to read those comics, I knew they weren't for me. That was the most exciting part. That my parents would say, no, not that one.
Oh, wow.
Pick up the Amar Chitragatha. Then I would sneak out and try and buy a Batman or whatever, right? Because the assumption is, that might be violent or whatever. Some of them might be. But yeah, I mean, comic books around the world are sold to young adults and adults, and then there is a section for kids. But
I mean, I remember when I'd seen Watchmen in theater.
Yeah.
And then I got the book. I mean, I got the graphic. I just saw the graphic novel. Sorry,
yeah,
can't to give it its right name. And the same thing with Sin City also. God, the level of art in that was like, it takes.
Sin City is on a different level. I mean, Watchmen, Alan Moore is just insane with his stories. But Sin City, in terms of the art, oh my God.
The 3 that stay back with me always is Sin City, Watchmen, and V for Vendetta. For me, that is.
V for Vendetta is one of the most popular books in India. Always. In fact, we got the artist in the initial years. We would bring him to we brought him to every city.
Wow.
And he was one of the most, the biggest sort of attractions for fans. People will line up for half an hour, 45 minutes just waiting for a sketch of V.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the real, what are sub-series about how businesses work. Jatin, how does Comic-Con make money, right? I mean, what are the major revenue streams? If you could just break down that for us, maybe ticket sales, sponsorship, merchandise, whatever.
Sure. So when we initially started, our events were free to attend. So our source of revenue was just the exhibition space. Initially, while people would approach us for sponsorships, we were not really sure how to give value to a sponsor. So we had some random sponsors, but it was only around after we started ticketing and we kind of learned the business, we started adding sponsorship revenue as well. So we have 3 revenue streams: ticketing, exhibition sales, and sponsorships.
Help me with the ticketing. What's that like? And actually, more importantly, tell me about the journey. Like, I think when you started, it was free.
Yes, for at least 3 years it was free.
Oh.
Finally, we took a leap of... I mean, it reached a scale where we couldn't sustain it purely on exhibition revenue. So we had to ticket. And we were really worried. I remember we were going to charge 100 rupees. And we were like, oh my God, what happens? What will happen? And obviously nothing happened. It was a sold out show. 30,000 people showed up. And then we realized कि बस 100 रुपए किया, ज़्यादा किया होता तो और पैसे बनते. And that kind of broke the fear of ticketing. In fact, in hindsight, that's one of our biggest mistakes. We should have ticketed from day one. Because a ticketed event has a little more value attached to it as compared to a free event. And the customer has to then spend a little more time because they've spent money to enter. But in any case, so those are the 3 main streams, and they're usually in a good year divided equally in the pie. Ticketing, exhibition sales, which is the stalls and everything, and then sponsors.
Well, just help me here, okay? Because this is a point which I think is also for content creators in general, self-included, right? Because we tried to have a subscription for Paisa Vaisa, didn't work at all. We had to stop it. But obviously outdoor events, live events are a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Just help me here to understand. There is this notion, whether true or false or myth, I don't know, that Indians don't like to pay. Okay? Hold. Okay? And now I have you sitting here telling me that when you have ticketed sales, people tend to take you a little bit more seriously. Just walk me through this, because it's just very fascinating for me to get that something that is now become so large, started off as free, and then you kind of regretted that we should have it from day one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are people out there probably watching this show trying to figure out live event mein ticket ka pricing kaise karte hain, free karna chahiye, nahi karna chahiye, at a time when the likes of Coldplay come and charge some insane number. Okay, just let's talk about that for a bit.
Sure. Look, when we started, did it for free, it was because of the fear of saying, okay, if it's ticketed, people don't really know what the show is. Most people did not understand what Comic-Con was. No one knew about it. It would discourage people from coming in. Maybe for the first 2 shows it was correct, but I think ticketing should have come in much earlier, because you are then going to show up. I know for a fact that this customer is going to be there. Second, you are going to value your time there. So you would want to make the most of it. You would want to make sure that you check out everything. And in my opinion, end up spending a little more time with us as well. Second, honestly, for live events, if your entire revenue stream is just sponsorships, you're at the mercy of a person who can break you, and in some cases you might be headed for disaster. So luckily for us, our event format was such where we did not have to rely on any one particular stream. So we were able to sustain that free model for a bit before it was going to break our back. But if I had started ticketing much earlier, I would have had a better quality show as well, because I would have had more money to invest in it. Deciding the ticketing price is, if you ask anyone how much something should be, they will always give you a lower price. They would say it's not worth it. But honestly, there is no science to it. You can look around and see where do people spend their time on a weekend. They go to a movie, not anymore. Maybe they'll pay for a monthly subscription now. or maybe you can look at other events in the space. So when we initially started, we were looking at benchmarks, which was mostly around what people spend at a movie hall. And at that point in time, I remember when movies were really doing well and halls were really packed. On a weekend you could charge a little more, and weekdays you would charge 300-400 or whatever. So that's how we kind of did a basic comparison. But now, obviously, ticketing price, we were on a certain path, so we have been increasing incrementally the value of tickets based on that. In India, there is a problem because most of our venues are so run down that when you enter, even as a promoter or organizer, I can't really redo it. So I'm at the mercy of that venue. And, if you've seen all those Coldplay or Diljit concerts, people complaining about whatever.
Toilets,
Yes, to a certain extent, the organizer could try and do something, but at the end of the day, that's how the venues are kept. I know for a fact in one of the venues, a bunch of organizers had to get together and build new bathrooms.
Wow.
Because the venue was like, I don't care. Which is why I say a venue like Geo is amazing, because we charge a little higher in Mumbai as compared to the other cities, because a person can come in April at 40 degrees heat and be comfortable inside.
AC is so important.
Yes, water, bathrooms. Ticketing is a sensitive process. At the same time, there is only so many people in a city who can afford to pay for live events. So, in my opinion, tickets should be priced higher. At the same time, you should give good value for it if possible, where possible. And I only foresee live events becoming more and more premium, which might mean a lot of people will not be able to access them, sadly. But that's currently the state that we are in.
Yeah, I mean, that's for someone else to build infrastructure. That's not your job.
Yeah, I mean, like for example in Delhi, it's the world's only open air Comic Con.
Wow.
Not on purpose.
Okay. You don't have any...
Because the venues that we have, now there are some venues, but they're very far off. Like there's one in Dwarka, which recently opened up, Yasho Bhumi. Or there was one which still exists in Greater Noida, which is like going to beyond Navi Mumbai if you live in Mumbai, right? But the biggest one used to be Pragati Maidan. But it's run by ITPO, where the rules are that you pay rental. But if you're a consumer event, you also pay 50% of your ticketing.
Wow.
So I was like, फिर बचा ही क्या है?
Rental plus rev share.
Yeah, rental plus ticketing share. So 50%. So then there's nothing left, right? Obviously. And I don't know why that archaic rule is still there. It should be removed immediately. Consumer shows, produce a lot of revenue for the city. And in general, you want more events and, such a brand new venue sitting there and not being used. But sadly those rules sometimes do exist in certain cities.
How have you taken the revenue curve? I mean, from 100 rupees a ticket, where are you now?
We are at about 900 in most cities and 1,000 in Mumbai.
Not bad, eh? That's
it's
good.
From 2014 till now. It's relatively kept up in certain cities. But yeah, I mean, every 2 years we try and revise our prices.
And of course, the scale is also increasing.
Yeah.
Okay. So this question, is running pop culture events in India a profitable business?
It's very difficult to turn a profit, but we did finally in 2015 after 4 years of operations. And since then we've been running a tight ship where we make sure that honestly, what is the point of doing business if you don't take back home? I can take a salary, but what I really want is my business to give me so much profit that I can live a good life.
What's your team size? I mean, in numbers?
So currently we're about 18 people, and usually we used to do 5 shows. So we were always 15, 16 full-time people. But now we are expanding. We were acquired by a company called Nodwin. So there are massive growth plans. For that, the team size is going to phenomenally increase. So that's going to be interesting.
That's good to know. Yeah, someone's investing in that kind of a business.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What are the biggest costs in organizing Comic Con?
One of the biggest is, I think, venues for sure for a live event. Venues end up taking anywhere between 25-30% of the cost of the show. And then depending on the format of your show, there are different elements. And then, for a show like us where we are planning things months in advance, there is a sustained overhead that we have to cover, which adds up, because you can't just keep running. A lot of promoters run a very very small ship, and then they'll rely on freelancers, which may be easy if you do one show in a year. But if you're trying to grow a business and build it, you need a team which learns, adapts, and then executes for you. So I think from a fixed cost, the overheads obviously add up when you run a IP-led business like us. And then from a event-to-event thing, the venue being ends up being a chunk of that cost. Then there's marketing, content, and setup, etc.
What's the number of people that attend Comic-Con annually in India now?
This year it'll cross 3 lakh.
300,000.
Yes.
Wow. Then I have to ask, right? I mean, the whole thing of creativity and commercial, as in how do you balance keeping this commercial as well as keeping the fan experience authentic?
It's very difficult. It's become, as we have tried to increase our size and scale, it's become more and more difficult. At times I feel personally I might be failing at it, to be very honest, but we try our best, and the principle that I follow is that I have to create a show where anyone who comes in, and they might have zero idea of what a Comic-Con or a superhero is, but they would go back home happy, enjoying themselves by what they saw and experienced. Because while we have, say, a hardcore audience, a chunk of the audience is there for fun. They're there to enjoy a weekend. They know about stuff, but they're not like hardcore about it. In fact, a lot of people come there, they get hooked onto things, and then they come back as a hardcore fan. So it's a difficult thing to do, maintain, especially for a creative business.
What's one financial mistake you made early on while building Comic-Con India, and what did you learn from it?
Like I said, ticketing was certainly one of them. One thing I'm happy that I did not do is take on debt for it. I mean, it was not that it didn't require me funding it myself, but I did not take like a bank debt or any sort of other debt, which is why when the pandemic happened and we had to shut down, unfortunately, even when we had to lay off our team, we were not in debt where we owed money to people. So that helped us kind of survive.
So much respect, man. If something like Comic-Con can survive the lockdown and the pandemic and come out of it, crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe first I've learned so much out there. Digital. So there is this entire, now I want to talk about the marketing and social media part, right?
Yeah.
I think your digital impressions, what I have at least here says 141 million digital impressions.
Yeah.
The 14 crore. What marketing strategies have worked best for you in growing this?
Honestly, from day one, it's been social media marketing. And when we started, that was the birth of social media, where there were less restrictions and you could do a lot more in terms of advertising. In fact, they had not figured out how they would monetize their ads back then, and that's Meta mostly. And since then, it's mostly been digital advertising, social media. We do some offline to please our sponsors, and also like a radio in certain cities still makes sense, but 90% of the budget goes into anything which is digital, where I can capture your time for 3-4 seconds.
Okay, let's just go one level deeper into that. Which platform drives the most engagement for you?
So far, it's Meta in India.
So when you say Meta, you're talking about
Facebook and Instagram. Instagram for engagement, Facebook for reach. But Facebook is kind of getting old in terms of the base. But yeah, it's Meta. Then we do Snap. TikTok, unfortunately, in India, unlike its Western counterpart, never worked for us, because in India the audience on it was not who would come to Comic-Con. But we keep trying different places. We advertise on Uber to Zomato to Ola to even InShots, wherever we feel we could find our audience.
So if you can just help me understand this role of social media. I want the audience to understand how social media has built this out for you. Like maybe some strategies, maybe some campaigns, maybe some examples, engagements. Like, how do you do that?
So, I mean, old school Facebook fans might remember Pages.
Yeah, of course.
So that was our first space for building a community, and at that point in time, that was one way of engaging with that consumer, getting feedback, all of that. And since then, when Instagram came in, and now everything is video-based content, what we keep doing on a regular basis is that we keep putting out any sort of content, either from the shows or creating ourselves on a regular basis, even when there is no Comic-Con. That's how we survived the pandemic, where we did keep spending on our social media presence because we had to stay relevant one way or the other. And we delve really into nostalgia, we delve into content which is trending, and luckily Comic-Con is a tent for pop culture. It keeps increasing in size, so there's different things that keep coming in. Podcasters are part of it also. Music can be part of it, gaming can be part of it. So we try and, whenever we're building a marketing campaign, we try and do a healthy mix of what might work currently and what people would always go back to in terms of, remembering or associating a Comic-Con with, which is
very interesting. So it's like saying that while the event might be like 2 days or 3 days in an entire year, the social media thing is 365 days.
It is every day.
Wow. That helps a lot, I guess.
Yeah. It's for me, it's part of my daily life. I answered customer DMs still because it's a lot of fun.
Long-term vision for Comic-Con India, plans for international expansion, anything, what's happening? You said that as you have someone who now owns this, so you said
so in January 2024, our company got acquired by Nordwind Gaming. There's a gentleman who runs it, Akshat Rathi. He has ambitious plans for Comic-Con. So immediately we went into more cities. We plan to do a lot more in the coming year in India. And hopefully, Nordwind is an international company as well. I'm sure in the coming years they might have international plans as well.
Okay. Now that the bulk of the stuff is done, I want to come to the slightly more, we started off, when I met you, that's the first thing that I said to you. Remember that finally I meet someone who's turned his passion into business, and you're like, let's kind of, what? You kind of just threw water on my whole enthusiasm out there. Yeah?
I'll tell you why. Because most times of running any business is going through a lot of disappointments. And when you try and turn something you're really passionate about into a business, then it's very, very hard for you to detach from it. And you take every failure, every sort of a thing very, very personally. And it takes over your life. So I know I've been through, in the past 14 years, I have invested so much emotionally, mentally into my business that now when I look back at it, I think it was unhealthy. And when you're really into that stuff, then every little bit matters to you, So the art of letting go is something that I've slowly learned. Where everything, and when you're doing it out of passion, then you want everything to be perfect. You want it to be a certain way, which unfortunately is not possible most times. So finding that right balance of letting go and having a different life other than what you do is I feel that's sometimes difficult, at least has been for me.
This sounds slightly vague. See, I thought I'm very jaded and all that in life because of my age and stuff like that. But when I look at the last 5-10 years, the younger audience, which by the way is the biggest demographic in India, they've got this thing stuffed into them, like passion. Entrepreneurship, passion, this, that.
Look, I think it's great. Obviously, I started when I was 23 and I am my first sort of thing, and I'm 40 right now. So as you grow older, your appetite for risk goes down, and you get tired also, right? But when you're in your 20s, you're mad. You can do anything. And that's why I ended up doing the different things I did. The other part of it is I am a extremely privileged child. I grew up studying in the best school in the country in Delhi. Went to abroad for studies, and my father didn't come from business. He was a working person. He funded all my dreams and everything. So much later in life, as I understood my privilege, I was able to leverage it. And I had a rule when I was in my 20s that if I'm being allowed to do this, I should do it as I should give it my all, because if I fail, I know I have some backup. And if I don't take advantage of my privilege, then what is the point of having it? So right now, I feel like when people get into business, get into it. For sure, go ahead and do it. But I feel like just because you're running a business doesn't mean you're doing something great, and doesn't mean people owe you any sort of appreciation. at the end of the day, everyone's running a business to make money. So some people do jobs, some people maybe start a business. Most people fail at it. I know I failed many times. So it's hyped up too much. I feel like, and I have a business partner as well, and we argue over this. He said, this is the nature of the beast right now. You run on valuations, you raise a lot of revenue. I was like, but then if you don't make money on it, what is the point? I thought that was the first line in our business studies CBSE curriculum. If your business has to turn a profit, otherwise it's a failure. So I feel like it's glorified, and not just in India, anywhere in the world. And we see the pitfalls in it as well. I think you should never take yourself too seriously, and best of luck to you if you run a business.
Did this realization come to you later, at the starting, or were you always...
So when I started, and this is 2007, being a business entrepreneur, that thing wasn't really there. I don't remember... the magazine Entrepreneur was not even published in India at the time. So it was not... luckily for me, I'm so happy that during those initial 5-6 years, there was nothing glamorous about running your own business. Yes, startups were there, but most people associated tech with it. The moment they understood you're trying to do something different, they're like, how do you make money? It doesn't make sense. Now it's a very different sort of a space.
So if someone out there is watching this and he's now coming to you saying, "Yaar, mujhe to bola tha passion hai," what would be your advice? How do you detach? You spoke a lot about detachment, which I think is that is a superpower.
Yeah.
Anybody who gets that early and kind of acts on that, believe me, that guy is going to be in a different zone.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice? Where would you draw the line? How do you detach, and how do you keep things real?
It comes with experience and time. I could say I got to know it in my 30s, but sometimes I feel I still don't know it. It's when it's your own business, you're working 24/7. But yes, time management and figuring out where to draw some line and be a little comfortable in your own space has to be there. But when you're starting out and you don't have a family and you're independent, sure, you can kill yourself, and that's what people do, and they're extremely successful at it. But I don't have any great advice how to do it. I just know I went through it by getting slapped around and finally making it making some sense to me on how to cut it at a certain point. But I think a boring way of saying it is time management. If someone were to come to me if they want to start a business, I think they should just know the pitfalls, and they should know what they're doing. At least they should have a vision for it. And because you might have a vision and reality might be different. As long as you're clear about what you want to do, you should do it. But I would say try and get other people to invest some money. Don't completely sink your own.
Talking of which, since you mentioned investing money in it, and you also mentioned about how you didn't take debt. See, taking a loan from a bank is a very different experience than actually pitching your thing to an investor. Did you ever do that? Did you ever pitch to an investor?
So my experience with this was I got approached 5 years down the line in the start of the business around 2014-15 by a very large company to invest. So they approached me. I didn't approach them. Okay. And then at that point in time, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And they wanted to build a JV, and we did that. And it didn't work out. So we exited also.
Okay.
So I bought back my shares.
Wow.
So and then when I post the pandemic, once the business was back and flourishing, I was like, I think I've reached a place where I want to do something else.
Okay.
Because I've given 14 years of my life to this, and I'm a person who would like to do many more things as well in life. So this is something I built. So if someone does approach us, and they did, so we were able to work out something that we were happy about. But it's not. I never had to approach anyone. I delved into my personal savings. I took lots of loans from my father. Some of them I have not paid back.
But the relationships are still good then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, he's my go-to person for any problem.
Nice.
Always. Dad knows best. But then I had to. I had to figure out how to. Like I said, I had a small business running before that, which was producing television shows.
Sure.
That was luckily a profitable business and a cash-rich business. So I was able to plow some of that money initially into Comic-Con, and that sustained it. And eventually, by God's grace, we got investment from a JV partner. We were able to turn this company into a profitable company, and then so we never kind of faced that VC sort of issue.
So there's one pattern that I kind of just kind of noticed right now when you spoke about your relationship with your father, and I just want to just kind of touch upon that, right? Having a great relationship with him, and I'm sure that you speak to a whole wide variety of people.
Yeah.
Okay, and the fact that you've got 3 lakh people attending your show obviously means that something somewhere is working. So you have a great relationship with your dad. You obviously do very well with your sponsors. You do really well with the people who come to your show. You think people skill is something that people in general should kind of get? Ki bhai, this is required.
People skills are important.
Yeah.
I think the idea on how to have a good conversation, and more importantly, building relationships. That's in my opinion, very key to the success of the business.
I kind of find it interesting that you went with Jean-Luc Picard and not James Tiberius Kirk.
Okay, no one can match him. Kirk was an extrovert. He was the Kobayashi Maru guy. He would jump into the fire. Jean-Luc would think about it for a minute. Jean-Luc was brave, but I think it was the whole, thinking, reading captain that attracted me. It suited my personality as compared to, the guy who was like...
So why didn't you go with Spock?
Spock requires a higher level of IQ. I don't think I have that.
Okay, folks, we are done with that, with the longer format of the show. Now we're getting into the fun part. What's the wildest cosplay you've ever seen at Comic-Con India?
Wildest. I think the fun. I don't know about wildest, but like the last thing that struck me was in Calcutta. Like I mentioned, Deadpool is a really popular character, and someone came as Bong Pool with a proper chicken curry kurta, and he was speaking only all the dialogues in Bengali, and he was excellent.
He was speaking all the Deadpool dialogues in Bengali.
Yeah, I saw, and it was a lot of fun.
Wow.
The guy immediately ended up on our main stage also. I don't know how, but yeah, it was a fun.
Bong Pool. If you had to live inside any comic book universe, which one would you choose and why?
Marvel probably. Or actually, I wouldn't mind living in the world of Studio Ghibli, because I'm a fan, but that...
Studio Ghibli?
Yeah, it's a series of... it's a studio that produces some amazing anime movies, and they're the most beautiful animated movies that you could have ever seen. But between Marvel and DC, Marvel.
I expected DC, but
a little more, the cities are the cities. You don't, they're the regular world. And Marvel, there's a comic called 1985 where the story is about a comic book nerd, and the entire Marvel universe comes alive into his world. So which is why I think I go for Marvel.
Are you waiting for the MCU movies this year? I thought some of them looked really good. There's the Captain America one, which
Fantastic Four for sure. Captain America I haven't seen, but
even I haven't seen.
I haven't seen it yet.
Are you looking forward to Fantastic Four? I just somehow have that.
I just want to see. Look, it's the third times. I think it's the third.
Yeah. So you had Ian Griffith, then you had Miles Teller, and now you've got this.
Yeah, so third times.
Pedro Pascal.
Third time's the charm. I think I'm looking forward to the whole retro feel to it.
The trailer
look, they're going to take my money in any case. I'm going to go for it. I have lower expectations now because I think we've kind of overdone everything, but that's okay. It's going to be fun.
What's the funniest or most unexpected moment that ever happened at a Comic-Con event?
Showing up at the venue a couple of hours before the event, and the venue would not let us in.
That's actually happened. What was that like?
Scary as fuck, but it was funny later on when I look back at it.
And you survived that?
Yes, I did.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, rapid fire. Marvel or DC?
DC.
Why?
Superman. Favorite character.
Just one word.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the Superman movie this year?
Of course.
It's looking... I didn't know about crypto at all, by the way.
Acha.
I didn't. I mean, I know that I used to read Superman back in the day, but when... It's James Gunn, first of all, and then you've got that open in the teaser that they put out crypto, and man, some of the scenes look So good.
Superman is supposed to be an optimistic, fun, positive superhero. He's Superman.
He's Superman.
The last iteration, the actor was really good, but the movies didn't do him justice. So I'm so looking forward to this.
So Superman is it? No? You can never be bigger than. I mean, you can never have anyone better than Superman ever.
It's
ever.
my favorite. My all-time favorite comic book is a Superman comic book called Superman Red Sun.
Okay.
Where he crash lands in Soviet Russia and becomes a communist, and the whole story arc starts from there. But he's still Superman. So it's a fantastic story. They did an animated version of it a couple of years back.
Okay.
But best comic ever.
Tinkle or Chacha Chaudhary?
Tinkle.
Any day?
Yes, because that was my first comic book. I even tried to submit a story.
Wow.
Completely stolen story. It was rejected, rightfully so.
And
finally, they did an anniversary edition where they did take my quote and printed it, which was the happiest thing ever.
This one you've already answered, but I'll still ask it one more time. Best superhero movie of all time?
Okay. The first Superman, but if you had to say recently, I would say Endgame, because that end scene, man. I mean, you can't. I can still watch it.
You just kind of, The original Superman is from 1970s or?
Yeah, the 70s.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah. That was probably my first ever superhero movie.
Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor.
Yes.
But Endgame.
Yeah, Endgame.
You can't.
You can't.
That final scene in cinematic history is like.
You can't match it.
One comic book character that deserves a Bollywood movie.
I think Spider-Man. I think
dedicated Bollywood, not a Hindi version of the American
No, I think
Hindi dub.
Spider-Man is that character that's so likable, so affable. I think that's why there is a Spider-Man India in that Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
It made sense and it was really fun. People loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If Comic-Con India had a mascot, what would it be?
So I thought about this. I would say the fan. It would be a female version and a male version, but it would be the fan, the ultimate geeky fan. Yeah. That would be the mascot.
And on that note of fandom and so much more, that is a wrap on this really special episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Jatin Varma, founder, Comic-Con India. Jatin, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me over. It was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.